about 50 people on our call right now. My name is Valerie, and I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service here in Spokane. We're going to just give you an updated briefing about the upcoming windstorm that we are expecting to begin this evening and tonight. You can go to the next slide, Robin. So just the bottom line up front, we are expecting a damaging wind event beginning Friday night into early Saturday. We have started to beef up our messaging and our wording with this storm because with every new model run that we see, we do start to see those winds starting to increase. And then we are monitoring potential for some heavy snow in north central Washington Sunday into Monday, and we'll briefly talk more about that after we go through the winds. And then we also are messaging very cold temperatures next week, mainly like Monday through Friday and potentially beyond Friday, but there's more uncertainty as we get later into the week, into next weekend. Can go to the next slide. So timing of the impacts for the wind tonight, we are expecting winds to begin to pick up this afternoon and evening. We're not expecting it to be the most breezy or most gusty yet this afternoon. We'll start just seeing that pickup of the southwest winds from 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts about 25 to 40 miles per hour through this afternoon. And then once the sun goes down and we get into that 6 p.m. time frame, we are going to start seeing the winds to begin to pick up further. We'll start seeing more sustained winds, 20 to 30 miles per hour, and then with gusts like 45 to 50 miles per hour. But then once we really get kind of into the overnight time frame between around like midnight is when we are expecting a cold front to pass through Spokane. And when that cold front passes through, we are expecting to see the strongest winds at that time. For Spokane, we're expecting the strongest winds around like the midnight to 2 a.m. time frame, where we could see gusts between 55 to 70 miles per hour for the Spokane area. And then depending where you are at in our forecast area, if you're more central Washington into the basin, you'll see the strongest winds with the cold front couple out like maybe 10 p.m. to midnight time frame. And then once you get more east of the Spokane area into the Idaho Panhandle, we could see the strongest gusts between like the 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. time frame. So we do think this windstorm will be similar to the January 2021 storm that we had, where we had an early morning wind event. Although because it is an overnight wind event, we do have kind of low to moderate confidence on the frequency of the wind gusts. So we're not expecting it just to be just straight couple hours of these strong winds. It will kind of just be in bursts through those couple hours when we see that cold front passage. And the winds will be most frequent over the exposed terrain and higher elevations once they get out of that kind of the friction from the surface and just into the more exposed air. And then we do expect winds to stay gusty through the 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. time frame, although they might not be as gusty as when the cold front passed, but they probably stay in around to 45 to 55 miles per hour through that 6 a.m., 7 a.m. time frame. And then we are expecting the winds to stay breezy through Saturday morning and into the late afternoon with sustained winds 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts 25 to 45 miles per hour. And then once we get into Saturday evening and overnight Saturday, we are expecting the winds to fully decrease. Might stay slightly breezy, but not as, they will just continue to decrease. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So here is our wind gust forecast. We have upped the wind speeds and wind gusts from our previous briefing, where we are expecting the Columbia Basin and the Palouse and like Garfield and Blues into the Spokane area to see the strongest wind gusts, with our gusts forecasted between 60 to 70 miles per hour. And we, again, as I mentioned, we are expecting these peak winds late Friday night into early Saturday morning. And then as we go to central Washington, the Waterville Plateau, the higher elevations, they can also see gusts around like 45 to 55 miles per hour, potentially some isolated 60 miles per hour. So we are expecting these gusts to be pretty strong. If we go to the next slide. Oh, okay. So our wind probabilities for central Washington, we did highlight the areas in yellow that have seen some big changes since our previous briefing. I just wanted to kind of mostly point out the Waterville area and the Waterville Plateau. They are seeing about 70% chance to see over 50 mile per hour winds. And then as we get closer to the 60 miles per hour, it kind of decreases. So for the Waterville Plateau area, and it's Columbia Basin for Ritzville, where they're seeing an 80% chance of over 50 miles per hour winds, kind of just that 50 to 60 miles per hour wind gust area. And then for Wenatchee, they have seen an increase in the greater than 40 mile per hour winds with an 80% chance, and then a 40% chance for over 50 miles per hour. Let me go next. Looking at eastern Washington, for Colville, we have seen an increase to about a 50% chance for over 40 miles per hour winds. And then in the Spokane airport, or the Spokane area, the West Plains, we are seeing higher highlighted chances to see wind gusts over 60 miles per hour with a 25% chance. And then for Pullman, kind of similar to the Spokane area, about 6% chance to see over 50 miles per hour and a 25% chance to see over 60 miles per hour. And then as we go further into like southeastern Washington, the Pomeroy area, we have beefed up the probabilities with over 6% chance to see over 60 mile per hour winds. Go next. And then for North Idaho, Sandpoint is going to see a 60% chance to see over 40 miles per hour winds, with also a 20% chance to see over 50 miles per hour. And then as we go down the Idaho Panhandle, we see St. Mary's, about 50% chance to see over 40 miles per hour. And then in the like LC Valley and the Camas Prairie, definitely seeing winds over 40 miles per hour with 100% chance, and then kind of lower probabilities, but a 50% chance for over 50 miles per hour in Lewiston, and a 25% chance for over 60 miles per hour. So we are having increasing confidence on these strong winds, pretty widespread across our forecast area, and that is highlighted in these probabilities. Let me go to the next page. As in at our previous briefing, we've mentioned that a lot of the areas we're seeing moderate impacts, but now we are, with our newest forecast, we are seeing areas that could have some high impacts. I'll show that on the next slide. But with high impacts, that's the 60 plus miles per hour wind gusts, we're expecting to see widespread power outages, widespread tree damage, and damage from the unsecured items, and some very difficult or treacherous driving conditions for vehicles that are traveling, especially along exposed highways. And then the surrounding areas where we see the high impacts that I'll show in the next slide, we're still seeing those moderate impacts where they could see numerous power outages with moderate damage and also difficulty driving. We go to the next slide. So what have we mentioned for those impacts? These are the areas in red are the areas that we are expecting to see those moderate to high impacts, kind of mainly the Columbia Basin into the Spokane area, the Palouse, and into like the central Idaho Panhandle, especially where trees still have their leaves, as we've mentioned. Those will act as like a sail and will bring down those trees. We do have high wind warning out for areas that are in that darker orange and in the red. So the Waterville Plateau to the Moses Lake area, east into like Spokane area, northeast Washington and North Idaho, and the blues in the LC Valley. We do have high wind warnings out, and those will be in effect from 5 p.m. tonight through 11 a.m. Saturday, and then we will start seeing good decreases in our winds after that time frame. Yeah, so we do have high confidence in seeing wind gusts to the 45 to 55 miles per hour, but then our confidence does decrease with that stronger 55 to 70 miles per hour, but there is enough signal in our weather models to indicate that we could see those winds that strong. Go to the next slide. I mentioned the potential impacts, but these pictures that I'm showing, these pictures are from our January 2021 windstorm that we had, where we saw widespread tree damage and power outages. And what's different between now and then is that in January, none of our trees had leaves, but this time the leaves have not fallen off yet. So this will catch more wind and increase the probability of them falling on houses, down wires, or just other objects that are underneath trees. And also, we could see those lightweight objects being blown around. So if your patio furniture isn't inside yet, I just brought mine inside yesterday, it might be a good idea to do before the winds start to pick up this evening. So like we mentioned, we do believe that property damage and power outages will be likely with very difficult travel along exposed highways. Go to the next slide. Oh, so one thing else, after this storm tonight into tomorrow, we are monitoring the potential for another snow event. We are going to see a deep low kind of set up off the coast of Washington and Oregon. And when we see systems like this, we see a wind switch at the surface and to the northeast. And when we have those northeast winds, it really favors the north central Washington area. So that's why you see the highest snow totals over north central Washington and then to the northeast Washington and the North Idaho. We are going to see some uncertainty is that we will still see some warmer temperatures on Sunday with our snow levels rising to about 2,500 feet across like the Wenatchee area and then to the basin and to the Spokane area. So there is like low to moderate confidence on the accumulations because it does look like a strong storm, but we are monitoring that. The snow looks to start over north central Washington early Sunday morning and transition to a rain-snow mix across the Wenatchee, the Basin area into the Spokane, but then it will reach the Panhandle and like eastern Washington late Sunday night, and we will see it transition back to snow Sunday night into Monday morning. So that could make for a messy Monday morning commute as we get closer. And we can look at the next slide. So another thing that we are messaging is once we're going to see an Arctic front come down, especially with that system as making its way Sunday into Monday, and we are expecting much colder temperatures, and we will see additional rounds of low elevation snow through middle of the week, but the big system does look like to be the Sunday into Monday snow system. But this, if you go to the next slide. With these much colder temperatures, we are going to see temperatures by Monday to decrease to about 10 to 20 degrees below average for this time of year. and that corresponds to highs in the 20s and low 30s, and lows in mostly in the teens and low 20s, but then our colder valleys such as Bonners Ferry, the Colville, Republic, the Methow Valley, the northern valleys, they could see lows in the single digits. Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday do look to be our coldest days, with Monday kind of that transition day to much colder temperatures. And then, as I mentioned, confidence in how long these cold temperatures will stick around does decrease as we get further in the week, but we do have high confidence for those cold temperatures for early to mid next week. Go to the next slide. And with those cold temperatures, we will possibly see some record cold highs. And then these are just some locations from our in-house model that is pulling out these records and comparing them to the forecast. And these are some of the highs that could potentially break the records for record cold highs. So it says Spokane, Pullman, Lewiston, and then even some record cold highs on the west side and down into Pendleton's forecast area and in Portland. So it'll be widespread cold across the Pacific Northwest. Go to the next page. So in summary, we are expecting those winds to begin picking up tonight around 6 p.m. and then really kind of be strong between that 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. timeframe, with the strongest winds dependent on when the actual cold front passage will pass. We're expecting high impacts across the areas where we saw like the Columbia Basin and the Palouse and Spokane area and Central Idaho Panhandle. This will result in tree damage and power outages and difficult travel. And then the Sunday and the Monday with the snow, moderate impacts. If the trees haven't lost their leaves from the wind, this will be another potential for snow on trees that could bring more branches and result in more tree damage and power outages. And then also travel impacts to the Monday morning commute. And then if we do see those long-term power outages, we are messaging for really cold temperatures next week. So that may be on top of another impact if we haven't resolved the power outages from this system or even the snow on Sunday into Monday. That could introduce some problems with the colder temperatures next week. And I believe that is it. Do we have any questions?